Welcome back to Askewed Reviews, and today we are continuing our Batman films with the 1992 action crime fantasy drama Batman Returns. Here is your trivia question for today. What is the name of the group that works for the Penguin? The answer will be at the end of this video. So in this film, it's Christmas time in Gotham, and like most times in Gotham, things are not going well, as a group of circus performers are now attacking everyone in the town square. It is, of course, up to Batman to come in and save the day once again. Now, while all of that is going on, we discover that there's a penguin man who's been living under the sewers, and apparently he was actually the child of a pair of Gothamites who decided to get rid of their child by throwing him into the river, and that bassinet floated down until it got to an abandoned zoo where he was raised by penguins. Also in this film, we have a billionaire industrialist named Max Schreck, who is apparently siphoning all the power from Gotham for his own uses. Now, the Penguin ends up kidnapping Max Schreck to hopefully blackmail him into getting him to do what he wants. Instead, the two decide to form a partnership. Max essentially uses the Penguin as a puppet and even tries to get him elected as mayor, even though that election has been over for months now. Now, the Penguin is using Max to get access to the Hall of Records so he can find out where all the firstborn sons of Gotham are, so he can try to steal and kidnap each one of them in a slow moving circus train that rides through the city. Max, by the way, is no squeaky clean individual himself. He has/had an assistant named Selina Kyle, who is apparently a bit too nosy, so he decided to shove her out of a window to her own death. But she didn't die. In fact, she came back as a leather-clad dominatrix named Catwoman. So now both the Penguin and Batman have the hots for her. And to make matters more confusing, Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle have started a relationship without either one of them knowing about their secret identities. So throughout Gotham, the question becomes who's the real villain and who's actually a hero. Although the real question that should be on all Gothamites' minds is why in the world do we still live here? So once again, Tim Burton is back in the director's seat for his follow-up to the movie Batman. What's really interesting though is this film, and once Beetlejuice 2 finally comes out, these will be the only two Tim Burton films where Burton actually has directed the sequel. Also, if you didn't know, Batman Returns was the first movie to use the Dolby Digital process. The original script for this film did in fact have Penguin and Catwoman as the villains, but they were going to be going after a hidden treasure. Vicky Vale was actually still going to be a part of it, and Bruce was going to propose to her by the end of the film. Max Schreck was actually going to be revealed as Oswald Cobblepot's brother. Jack Nicholson was even going to come back as a cameo to make it seem like the Joker was still alive. The character of Detective Harvey Bullock was going to be introduced, and more than likely played by Brian Dennehy. Robin was also going to be introduced in this film, but they were actually going to go with Tim Drake as Robin this time around. As to who was going to play him, it was going to be between Marlon Wayans and Michael J. Fox. The plan was to have Tim Drake be an extremely helpful mechanic, who not only would be the one to help Batman out when he lost control of the Batmobile, but would also be the one to scramble the signal for the missiles that were attached to the Penguins. Director Tim Burton and composer Danny Elfman both had a little bit to do in the film as well. Burton was actually one of the voices on the voicemail in Selina's apartment. And Elfman was one of the people off screen who got to throw vegetables at Danny DeVito. Once again, in my opinion, I think that Michael Keaton did an amazing job as both Batman and Bruce Wayne in this film. Just like the first film, there was another product placement with a shoe. This time around, Batman was wearing Air Jordan 6s. Michelle Pfeiffer also did an amazing job as Catwoman, and I feel kind of bad for her because apparently the suit actually had to be vacuum sealed onto her, and she could only do scenes for short amounts of time as she would become lightheaded. She would actually go through 60 cat suits, each one costing $1,000. Pfeiffer also received rigorous training for 2-hour sessions a day for 6 months in kickboxing, yoga, weightlifting, and karate. She would also receive an additional 3 months of training on bullwhips, and when Pfeiffer was first learning how to use the whip, she actually cut her trainer's face. Also, in case you're wondering, that was actually a live bird that she put in her mouth, because she thought that the puppets they were using looked too fake. Annette Bening was actually the first actress brought on as Catwoman, but she became pregnant and could no longer take the role. Other actresses that could have potentially been Catwoman were Meryl Streep, Madonna, Cher, Demi Moore, Susan Sarandon, Brooke Shields, Gina Davis, Sigourney Weaver, Jodie Foster, Ellen Barkin, Lorraine Bracco, Bridget Fonda, Nicole Kidman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Lena Olin, Madeline Stowe, Raquel Welch, Jennifer Beals, Deborah Winger, Reba McEntire, and Melanie Griffith. Danny DeVito is another actor who did such a great job in this film. Apparently, though, he remained in character between takes. DeVito would actually spend 2 to 3 hours in the makeup chair each day. Other actors that could have potentially been the Penguin were Dustin Hoffman, Dudley Moore, Marlon Brando, John Candy, Bob Hoskins, Ralph Waite, Dean Martin, Alan Rickman, Phil Collins, Charles Grodin, Ben Kingsley, John Goodman, Christopher Lee, Joe Pesci, Ray Liotta, Gabriel Byrne, Alex Rocco, Christopher Lloyd, and Rowan Atkinson. Christopher Walken also had a great performance, and his character of Max Schreck is actually named after the Max Schreck, who was the German actor that portrayed Nosferatu. There's an Easter egg in Max's office which you may or may not have seen. He's got a lot of celebrity pictures, and one of which is him and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who would appear in the fourth Batman film as Mr. Freeze. David Bowie, by the way, is the only other named individual who may have been Max Schreck. Paul Rubens and Diane Salinger, who appeared in Tim Burton's first big film, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, would actually reappear in this film as the Cobblepots. Batman Returns is actually the second of 3 films that Paul Rubens and Tim Burton would work on together, including Pee-wee's Big Adventure and The Nightmare Before Christmas, where he would voice Locke. This is also the first of 2 times that Paul Rubens would actually play the father of the Penguin, as he would do so again in the live-action series Gotham. Originally, Burgess Meredith was asked to play the father of the Penguin in this film since he played the Penguin in the 1966 Batman series. Unfortunately, he was ill at the time and couldn't do so. This movie is considered the breakout role for character actor Doug Jones as the Thin Clown. Just like how Tracy Walters got his role as Bob the Goon in the first film from being friends with Jack Nicholson, Vincent Schiavelli, who played the organ grinder, was very good friends with DeVito, and DeVito requested to have him be part of the film. There's a sequence in the film where a trained monkey delivers this letter to the Penguin. Apparently, the monkey was so freaked out by DeVito's makeup and the black goo that was spilling out of him that it tried to attack him. And it's only due to the heavy padding that DeVito had on the front of him that the monkey was not able to attack his genitals. There's a line in the film that the Penguin has: "I am not a human being, I am an animal." This is a reversed reference to the film The Elephant Man. Throughout the production, they would actually use real king penguins, they would also use robotic ones, and people in fiberglass suits. There were some days during filming where outside it would be over 100 degrees, but the entire set was down to 35 degrees due to the penguins being there. Speaking of the penguins, this is just highly amusing. Nick Park, who created Wallace and Gromit, has stated that he considers Wallace and Gromit: The Wrong Trousers to be an unofficial spin-off of Batman Returns, as he is under the impression that Feathers McGraw is actually one of the pallbearer penguins from the film. Here's something to reflect upon. All the villains in this film are dark reflections of Bruce Wayne / Batman. Catwoman is a masked vigilante, Penguin is an old money orphan, and Max Schreck is a prominent businessman. Here's something that I thought was absolutely brilliant in the movie. At the masquerade party, only Bruce and Selina seem to be the ones not wearing masks, which is interesting as technically Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne are actually the masks of the real people behind them, Batman and Catwoman. Here's something interesting that almost happened. Tim Burton almost made a Superman movie called Superman Lives starring Nicolas Cage. If the film had been made, he was planning on having Michael Keaton make a cameo in the film as Batman, or at least Bruce Wayne. This film also wasn't the last time that Michael Keaton would be Batman. He was going to be in Batgirl, but that film got canceled. But he was actually in The Flash. I also want to give a special shout out to the Batman Returns video game, as I remember playing this quite a lot when it first came out. Now, when it comes to the film itself, I really enjoyed Batman Returns, and I think it's my favorite of the first 4 films. So I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 5. Now, as for the trivia question, what is the name of the group that works for the Penguin? They are called the Red Triangle Circus Gang. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe.